Hello, welcome back to Learn Economia. Today we are going to see the second part of the chapter 2, that is a theory of consumer behavior, which comes in the introductory microeconomics of class 12. So we have given you an introduction regarding the theory of consumer behavior in the first part of this segment. Having said that, let's proceed to the second part of this segment, which is titled as Theory of Consumer Behavior Part 2. So let's get started. Here, what you have to understand is that the cardinal utility analysis is something that we can use. So what is cardinal utility analysis first of all? So it considers the viewpoint that you can measure utility, and you can measure utility in the unit of utils. So this analysis can be measured, or this can be that can be used in order to derive the demand curve for a commodity, and that is what it believes. And we are going to see how this happens. And so in today's session, we see the derivation of demand curve in the case of a single commodity. Okay. Before going to the way of deriving the demand curve for a single commodity by using this cardinal utility analysis, we need to understand what is demand. So this is something that we have already told you. So it means the quantity of a commodity which a consumer would be willing to buy. Okay, so this is important. So when you say demand, you have to understand the different small topics that comes under demand. So the first concept is willing to buy. The consumer should be willing, and it should be able to afford. So I'll be explaining all these things. Able to afford, it says. That means that the consumer he should have some money to buy the commodity. Okay. And in this case, we consider that the price of the goods that we have in the market and also the income of the consumer, these are considered to be unchanged. Okay. And this is what is understood as a demand for the commodity. Demand for the commodity by the consumer. So you cannot say that if a consumer is having some money, but he is not willing to spend that commodity on the particular commodity, or he is not willing to spend that money on the particular commodity that we have. In that sense, in that case, we cannot say that there exists demand. So he should be willing to spend his money for the commodity. And also, if he doesn't have the money to spend, but he actually wants a commodity, then also you cannot say that there exists demand. If their demand would exist only when you have a combination of both your willingness and your affordability. So when these two things when these two things are combined, you can say that there exists demand. So we are considering a commodity, and its name is considered as X. So let's see what will happen here. So this commodity that we have here is commodity X. Okay. Now we are referring to this commodity, and we have to understand that since we are purchasing it from the market, it has something in the name of a price. Okay. So the demand for this X would depend upon several factors apart from price. It depends on other factors like the prices of other commodities. For example, if it has got some substitute commodities, then it would also demand for X would depend upon the price of the substitutes it has. And also it depends upon some complementary commodities. And what its complements means, those commodities which are jointly consumed with commodity X, like bread and butter. And for substitute goods, you have examples like tea and coffee. Though these are imperfect substitutes, we can consider these as substitutes. Okay, so apart from the prices of other commodity, you will be having some other factors also influencing your demand for X. And this can be your income. When your income increases, that can be tendency for you to purchase more of the commodity. Then, and vice versa. And also there is something in the name of taste and preference. What does it mean? If you have a favorable taste or preference towards a commodity, then there is a greater chance for you to purchase more quantity of this commodity, and vice versa. So what we can understand is that we can go for a graphical representation of various quantities of commodities which a consumer would be willing to buy at various prices. Okay, but we consider that the prices of other commodities, the income of the consumer, etc. as constant. So we would be considering changes in prices and changes in quantities, nothing else. Even though we know that there are many other factors influencing the demand of a consumer for the commodity, we consider all these things as constant. The ceteris paribus assumption. So here in this figure you can see the way in which we can derive the demand curve by plotting for the different combinations of price and quantity. You are getting a hypothetical demand curve, and here we are considering commodity X, and you measure the quantity of X purchased along the X axis and price of X would be taken along the Y axis, and you go for different combinations. See, at this particular point on the demand curve, you are purchasing the commodity for rupees 40, and for rupees 40 you are getting this much, 5 units of the commodity. Now when the price has got reduced to 20, you are purchasing more of the commodities. So that is, you are purchasing 30 units of the commodity. Okay, so quantity and price has got an inverse relation, and that is why your demand curve is sloping downwards. And when you are facing a less price in the market, you buy more of the commodity, and at higher prices you will be buying less of the commodity, and that is how you can have an demand curve like this. It is having a negative slope. Okay, so you have a negative relationship between the price of the commodity and the quantity you demand, and this is known as the law of demand. So there exists an inverse relationship between price and quantity demanded, but you keep the other factors influencing your quantity demanded as constant. And an explanation to this downward sloping demand curve or negatively sloping demand curve would rest on the notion of what is known as the law of diminishing marginal utility. And what does diminishing marginal utility says? When you consume more and more units of a commodity, the utility that you gain from each successive unit, that goes on diminishing. So even if you are an ice cream lover, you will be and if you are given some 6 ice creams, the first ice cream you eat with uh, a lot of happiness, and the first ice cream would give you a lot of satisfaction, and after having the first ice cream you go for the second ice cream. Okay, the second ice cream will also give you some satisfaction, but when you move on to the third ice cream after consuming the second ice cream, you will be getting comparatively lesser satisfaction from third ice cream. And after consuming the third, when you go to the fourth, again your satisfaction would come down for having the third unit of ice cream. And after consuming the third unit, when you go to the fourth unit, again your satisfaction comes down. Then you come to the when you come to the fifth unit, your stomach is full. You need not have more ice cream. And if you are compelled to take the sixth ice cream also, what happens is that there would be some disutility as a result of taking the sixth units, because you are taking more than what you need. and this would be creating this utility. And if you compare the utility that you have derived from the first ice cream and sixth ice cream, you could understand that the first ice cream has given you greater utility, but the sixth unit of the ice cream has given you some negative or comparatively lesser utility. So that is known as the law of diminishing marginal utility. It says that each successive unit of a commodity would be providing you lower and lower marginal utility. The additional utility that you will be gaining from the additional unit of consumption would be coming down. Okay, so that is what you mean by the law of diminishing marginal utility. So what happens here is that the individual will not be willing to pay as much as for each additional unit, and this would be resulting in the negative slope of the curve or downward sloping of the demand curve. So again come to the point here. So at 40 rupees, the consumer is getting only 5 units or 5 units of the commodity, and the sixth unit of the commodity can be, which would be less than worth the fifth unit. So here you are getting the sixth unit, but it is having some less worth here. Okay, so this is the sixth unit that you can have. So this would be the fifth unit, and next to it, you will be having the sixth unit. Okay, so the individual, what we can see is that he or she will be willing to buy the sixth unit only when the price of the commodity drops below 40 per unit, because you are purchasing the fifth unit for 40 rupees. He will not purchase the sixth unit if the price of the commodity is above 40 or exactly 40. He will wait whether it is coming down to below 40. So hence the law of diminishing marginal utility explains why your demand curve has got a negative slope. Okay. Now, having understood the concepts involved in the cardinal utility analysis, let's deal with the other version of utility analysis, which we call as ordinal utility analysis. Since the cardinal utility analysis suffers from a lot of problems and a lot of drawback, many economists have identified the problems associated with the cardinal utility analysis, and they could see that it is not possible to quantify your utility in terms of numbers. You cannot represent your utility by using the unit util, or any number will not represent your utility. And from that perspective, the cardinal utility analysis was being questioned from different angles. But the ordinary utility analysts, they told that okay, you cannot measure utility and you cannot express this in terms of a single number, but what you can do instead is that you can rank these utilities. You can rank the various alternative combinations of different commodities, and you can see whether one particular combination is having it is giving you more or less utility compared to the other combination, that you can say, but you cannot measure the utility in terms of a numbers. So that is what the ordinary utility analysts say. So we can go for ranking. So that is the main subject matter of your ordinal utility analysis. So they say that a consumer's preference over a set of available bundles can be represented in the form of a diagram. It can be represented diagrammatically. Okay. So again, it would be a two-dimensional figure. Let's see how it looks like. So this is how you can plot the different combinations of two commodities. And here, each point on this particular curve would give you the same utility. See, here you are measuring two commodities, one on the x-axis and other one on the y-axis. On the x-axis you are measuring banana, and the y-axis you measure mangoes. And each point on this curve, point A, point B, point C, and point D, each of these points gives you different combination of both mango and banana, and the consumer is actually said to be indifferent between different points on this curve. Why this happens is because each point is giving you different combinations of the commodities, of the two commodities, but the consumer is having same satisfaction from all of these points on the curve that you have in front of you. So when you join these points like A, B, C and D or other such points, you will be getting something, and this curve you get after joining these such points are known as, so this curve is known as the indifference curve. Why it is called indifference curve is because the consumer would be indifferent to different points of this curve. So he cannot compare different points because all these points are equally valuable to the consumer. So each of these points would be giving the consumer equal satisfaction, same satisfaction. So this is what you have to see. Same level of satisfaction would be provided to the consumer uh, by each and every point. And also you have to understand what is that when a consumer gets one more banana, he has to sacrifice some mangoes. So here at point A, you can see that he is consuming this much of bananas and he is consuming this much of mangoes. So the consumption of mangoes is this much, that is it is 15, and the consumption of banana is only 1 unit. How can he consume one more banana? So if he has to consume one more banana to make it 2, what he has to do is that he has to reduce the consumption of his mango. So he has to reduce it from 15 to 12. That is what he can do in order to consume one more additional unit of banana. So he has to forgo some mangoes, then only he can consume more, much more, or at least one more unit of banana. So when you have to increase the unit of consumption of one commodity, you will be compelled to reduce the quantity of consumption of the other commodity. Why this happens is because your income is limited, but your wants are unlimited. Okay, so each point on the demand, each point on the IC or indifference curve would be giving you the same satisfaction. Now let's represent the law of diminishing marginal rate of substitution by using the IC or indifference curve. We could have in the table 4 different points or 4 different combinations, and if you look at each combination, you have certain units of banana and certain units of mangoes. So in the first case, which is combination A, you are having 1 banana and 15 mangoes. So that is your quantity of consumption, or that is your combination. In the case of combination B, you are purchasing 2 bananas and you are taking 12 mangoes. For combination C, you are having 3 bananas and 10 mangoes. For combination D, you are having 4 bananas and 9 mangoes. Okay, so here what you have to do is that just take the difference. So when you move from 1 to 2, here the difference is 1. When you move from 2 to 3, the difference is 1. When you move from 3 to 4, the difference is 1. Let's see here also. Initially it was 15, now 12. The difference is 3. Here from 12, 10, difference 2. Now here 10, 9, difference 1. So let's take this difference and go for your marginal rate of substitution. How much you are giving up to get an additional unit of one commodity. We could see that in order to get an additional banana, the consumer was sacrificing some mangoes, right? So this is something which we call in the name of marginal rate of substitution. The consumer will be substituting bananas for mango or mango for bananas. Okay, here what happens is that in order to get one more banana, he is substituting banana with mangoes. He has to sacrifice some mangoes. So the formula for finding your marginal rate of substitution is delta yx is equal to delta y by delta x. You have to divide the first number with the second number. Okay. So this will give you your MRS, that is 3 by 1, 2 by 1, 1 by 1. Here you will be getting MRS as 3. Here you will be getting your MRS as 2. And here you will be getting it as 1. So it would be 3, 2 and 1. So you could see that your MRS would be diminishing with the increase in the number of bananas. Okay, and that is what you could get from this table, and that is what actually happens also. So as the number of bananas increases, mu which you could derive from each additional unit of banana would be falling, and since with a fall in the quantity of mangoes, mu derived from mango would be increasing. Okay, so what happens ultimately here is that when you increase the number of bananas, the consumer will be having some inclination to sacrifice smaller and smaller unit of mangoes, because he needs both the commodities, both mangoes and bananas. He doesn't want to sacrifice the entire mango to have only banana. So he now attaches more value to mangoes. So this will make fall in the increase in the quantity of banana, and this will make MRS to fall with the increase in the quantity of banana. We consider this as the law of diminishing marginal rate of substitution. You are increasing the quantity of banana, and now you are giving more value to mangoes. So what happens is that with the fall in the quantity of mangoes, the marginal utility that you get from the mangoes, each additional unit of mango would be increasing, which makes the law of diminishing marginal rate of substitution to work. So here let's see the figure again. And if you go from point A to point B, again I'm saying the consumer sacrifices 3 mangoes. From here it was 15 and here it is 12. So the difference here is 3. And what is the difference here? Here the difference is 1 banana. Okay. And if you take here from B to C, here you have again 1 banana. Here the difference is 2. So thus it's clear that the consumer would be sacrificing smaller and smaller unit of mangoes for each additional unit of banana. For each additional unit, he would be sacrificing smaller and smaller quantities of mangoes. And you could have seen the shape of the IC. IC, as a result of the diminishing marginal rate of substitution, is convex to the origin. Okay, and this is known as the shape of the IC. The goods that we have considered here are imperfect substitute, not substitute, perfect substitute. But if we were considering the case of perfect substitute, MRS would not be diminishing. So in that case, MRS would not diminish. It would be the same. So I'll be giving you an example so that will be clear to you. So in this case, you are considering again different combinations of both X and Y. The second and third column gives you different quantities of commodity X and different quantity of commodity Y. And here you are having your MRS, the ratios, and you divide delta Y by delta X. Here you will be getting 1, here you will be getting 1, here you will be getting 1. So everywhere this is something which you consider as blank. So in all these cases you will be getting it as 1. So that means the consumer would be indifferent for all the combination as long as the total of 5 rupee coins and 5 rupee notes remain the same. So here QX means 5 rupee notes and here it means 5 rupee notes. The same the same utility giving different forms of currencies. Okay, so the consumer hardly matters whether he is getting a currency note or whether it is a coin. He doesn't care about it. The two commodities are perfect substitutes. Perfect substitutes. So that will make your IC a straight line. This is your IC for perfect substitutes. Here the consumer would be sacrificing the same number of 5 rupee coins every time he has an additional 5 rupee note. And that is what is shown with the straight line IC for perfect substitutes. So that's all about today. I request you to like, share and subscribe to this channel for more videos, and you can be a part of my Telegram channel and Telegram group to discuss your doubts. Thank you.